a world where the number of movies available is great, but many are so bad, you'll learn a new definition of hate. One man sifts and reviews through the movie sludge. One man will be the movie cop, jury, and judge. He goes by many names, but you know him by Movies Merica.
Hey, all you beautiful movie-loving people out there, live from a red carpet somewhere, surrounded by celebrities. This is the Movies Merica podcast with Van Ebert, where movie reviews meet cold brews. Van will review your favorite and maybe not so favorite movies while enjoying some ice-cold beers and saying cheers. Now let's head into the theater and join our illustrious movie reviewer du jour, who's no doubt got the beer ready to pour, Van Ebert. Hey, yo, how you doing? Hey, welcome to everybody out there. Get your butt in here. Come on, welcome. Make yourself comfortable here at the Bada Bing, okay? Movies Merica podcast, all right? Hey, you know what I'm talking about. Forget about it, eh? Capiche, all right? Come on down, settle you up some gabagoo, some nice parmesan, you're going to get ready to listen to my review. Forget about it. It's going to be the many scents of Newark.
What do you want, Richard? I'll be honest with you.
I want money.
I want to do a good deed. I want to do a lot more.
The best things in life are free.
I try to set an example for my nephew.
Give them to the birds and bees. I want money.
Anthony got kicked out of school. I went through all that trouble, and for what?
I'm always being accused.
You gotta be good.
That's what I want.
I want to do whatever I can to help the family.
That's what I want.
Great trailer, am I right? Am I right? I'm right, am I? I'm right, aren't I? You better say I'm right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I hate to see something happen to your car while you're inside of it. That would be a tragedy, huh? Yeah. At this point, you must think like, man, Van thinks all the time people talk this way. Well, don't they? Okay, I know they don't. I know. That's why, like not all Iowans talk about corn. That's where I'm originally from. We don't talk about corn and tractors and silos all the time, and we don't all listen to country music and marry our sisters. We don't do that. So, but but I just love doing that Italian voice, man. It's so much fun, And I'm reviewing The Many Saints of Newark. And it's just it's got me all gabagoo, it's got that got that vibe going on in me here. So hey, welcome everybody to Movies Merica podcast, and welcome to this review. I would be remiss if I don't mention that I have got this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, all the usual suspects. That 5-0 is locking up. And then I'm also got the podcast on moviesmerica.com. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram under Movies Merica. If you want to share anything with me, if you're in the giving mood, you're feeling generous, and you're like, I'm just a giving, loving person for once in my life. I feel like I should share something with Van on Instagram or Twitter under Movies Merica. That is a tremendous waste of your generosity, but I'll take it. And you can tell me how terrific or terrible I am. I'm hoping terrific, because I'm going to get all my feelings hurt if you don't say I'm terrific. And so, just get on there and, reach out. I'm a friend. I'm here for you. Okay. I can be, if you go out there and you see a movie and it's terrible and it's horrendous and you just need some therapy, need a social media shoulder to cry on, by all means. All right. Okay, so I have said it, don't blow in the face. I'm going to be reviewing The Many Saints in Newark today, but also I will be downing a Samuel Adams Oktoberfest, which has nothing to do with the mob or New Jersey or Tony Soprano or anything like that. It's just that it's October, and I'm going to drink an Oktoberfest, because we're getting close to Halloween. Woo! Okay, that's my weak ghost impression. Okay. Whew. Moving on. All right. And so, yes, Samuel Adams, Oktoberfest. You can get this anywhere. But a lot of the beers that I review on here aren't as common as Samuel Adams. But I do get into some somewhat exotic beers sometimes. And if you ever listen to one of my reviews and you hear me talking about some exotic beer that you can't get, in Wichita Falls, Texas, or wherever, you can go to gopuff.com or craftshack.com, and I'm not getting paid any money to endorse them. I just want you to be able to enjoy the hops and barley, the suds that I'm downing while you're listening to your favorite movie review podcast. Okay, I don't want to leave you out. And so, like I said, today is Boston Lager, Oktoberfest. Yeah. Okay. You're like, enough impressions, man. Oh, my God, give us a break. I'm sick of your impressions. Frank Caliendo, you are not. Okay? All right. So let's get right into The Many Saints of Newark. Now, as most of you know, this is a prequel movie to the hit, iconic HBO series The Sopranos, starring the late, great James Gandolfini, who I remember well before The Sopranos. I remember him in True Romance, one of my favorite all-time movies. It's a cinematic masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. Then Tony Scott, who had him in True Romance, liked him so much that he put him in his next movie called Crimson Tide. Crimson Tide, starring this guy named Denzel Washington, and Gene Hackman, yes, of Lex Luthor Superman fame, Gene Hackman, and a few other movies, something about the French Connection and The Birdcage and, all these other movies, The Firm, but, anyway, but I digress. So he was in Crimson, so James Gandolfini was in Crimson Tide, and then, he just, I guess that pretty much got his star all lit up, and then David Chase decided to create this series called The Sopranos, based on a book for HBO, and James Gandolfini just, was just got the, the part of a lifetime, and he became a household name as Tony Soprano, and he was a very charismatic character. He's one of those rare characters, kind of like Walter White in Breaking Bad, where, your logical side knows that this guy's a murderous scumbag. He philanders around on his wife Carmela all the time, and he's a terrible father and just terrible to pretty much everybody in his life, including, his quote unquote nephew Christopher. And he's just a lump of dirt of a human being, but he's so charismatic. You find yourself rooting for him a little bit, or a part of you is like, well, this is just, a guy who's doing what he needs to do for the family, Let's say just, just making bread for the family, but, that's not the way that you should be feeling about this guy. And then also you feel that way about, all his buddies. You got Paulie and Silvio and, everybody else, you've got Christopher. You got what's that? Who's that? Oh God, the Jewish mobster guy, Hesh. He was on there, Hesh. Yeah, it's been too long since I watched the show. I gotta really revisit The Sopranos, and it will not be a chore because I love that show. It's pretty good. So yeah, The Many Saints of Newark is a prequel movie to that, and it it has a lot of the characters that you have in The Sopranos, but the younger versions of them. Obviously, you've got young Tony Soprano, who's actually played by Michael Gandolfini, who, as you may have guessed, is James Gandolfini's son. And that was some wise casting right there, because he just looks like what you would imagine James Gandolfini looked like as a kid. Just has the same body type and mannerisms and all that. And so that was some, great casting right there. But really, the star of the movie is Alessandro Nivola. He plays Dickie Moltisanti. And so Dickie Moltisanti, he's Christopher Moltisanti's dad. And Christopher Moltisanti was, a prominent character in The Sopranos. They called him, Tony Soprano called Christopher his nephew in The Sopranos, but he wasn't really his Christopher. Wasn't really his nephew. He's basically it's his cousin. Anyway, that's not an important point. But Christopher Moltisanti is a important character on The Sopranos. In case you haven't seen The Sopranos, if you haven't, watch that. Come on. So Christopher Moltisanti's dad, Dickie Moltisanti, is like a mob legend, and this movie has him as the main character. And you know what? My voice is getting a little dry here, so I'm going to have to go to the Oktoberfest. So, pardon moi. Oh, yeah. There we go. Okay. And Alessandro Nivola, he plays Dickie Moltisanti, very charismatically in this movie. Now, Alessandro Nivola, he is not a household name. Your mom's not going to know who Alessandro Nivola is. Your priest isn't going to know who Alessandro Nivola is. Only your nerdy cinephile little brother is probably going to know who Alessandro Nivola is. Alessandro Nivola, a lot of you might know him. If you saw him, you'd be like, not Castor Troy. Castor Troy's Pollux Troy. There you go. Pollux Troy from Face Off. So Nicolas Cage played Castor Troy in Face Off, and then Pollux Troy was his nerdy, brother who couldn't keep his shoe tied in that movie. And that was played by a very young Alessandro Nivola. And then, so that's where I first saw him. I was like, man, that's a character that really stands out. I was like, if my eyes don't deceive, I think he's starting to enjoy being you. That's a classic line, in my opinion, from Alessandro Nivola as Pollux Troy. Just watch Facebook again, and you'll get to that part like, oh yeah, that's what Van was talking about. Okay, so he was in Face Off as Pollux Troy. He was also in Jurassic Park 3 not long after, or maybe I think the same year as Face Off. He was Sam Neill's assistant in Jurassic Park 3. He's been in a few other movies. So he's been around, since, the mid-90s, mid to late 90s. And then now he's starring as a somewhat young Dickie Moltisanti in The Many Saints of Newark. So Alessandro Nivola is kind of like the Dick Clark of actors here. He doesn't look like he's aged much since the 90s in Face Off. But he's a great character in this movie. His character arc is compelling. His facial expressions, his acting really sells the anguish that he's in, really sells how much he cares about Tony Soprano. Because Dickie Moltisanti, his wife can't have kids, and so he really wants a son. And the closest thing he has to a son is, of course, his nephew Tony. And so he just dotes on Tony, and which is good because Tony's own father, Johnny, isn't really around all that much. And Dickie just takes Tony under his wing and spoils him and considers him a son. And that's where Tony is corrupted as a kid. This is so, Tony Soprano, you learn in this movie that Tony Soprano didn't just wasn't a good kid, and he had all these great influences around him. And how could he become a criminal? It must have just been something, a part of Tony Soprano that made him a criminal. I was like, no, there wasn't a part of him. There was people around him. He grew up in the mob, and so he had the connections. He had the means. He had the motivation to become who he became. So you got Tony Soprano in this movie, but he's not like, he's just a supporting character. Yeah, like I said, the star of the show is Dickie Moltisanti. And then you've also got characters like Junior Soprano, and he's played by Corey Stoll. Corey Stoll is one of those character actors, again, and one of those, oh, that guy, one of those characters. He was he's the bad guy in Ant-Man, and he was in a few House of Cards episodes with Kevin Spacey. Oh my God, I said Kevin Spacey. Oh, you can't say Kevin Spacey. Oh. Sorry, I broke the rules. I apologize to the movie community. I know it's a very fragile and delicate subject. Okay. Anyway, enough about that. So Corey Stoll was in House of Cards. He's been in a few other things, and so he doesn't really do much in this movie. He's just a guy. They put Junior Soprano's glasses on, and you look at him and like, oh, that's obviously a young Junior Soprano. All right, moving on. He just doesn't really do much in this movie. And then you got Paulie and Silvio, and you got some other characters there. You got Tony Soprano's mother, Livia, who in the series, she's in the first few seasons of The Sopranos, and she is, and I'm sure this is, they meant this in the show, but she is really annoying in the show. Just this naggy, crabby, cranky mother of Tony Soprano, and she's devious and scheming, and you can see the beginnings of that in this movie. She's played by Vera Farmiga, who was in The Departed with Leo DiCaprio, played the shrink that Matt Damon went to, and she was romanced by Leo DiCaprio in The Departed, and she's mostly known now for being in the Conjuring movies, which she's pretty good in those movies. So she's in that. Jon Bernthal, I always forget his last name. Jon Bernthal. He plays Johnny Boy Soprano. That's Tony's son, Tony's father. He doesn't do much in this movie. He's mostly known for The Walking Dead and The Punisher, and he was in Ford v Ferrari. Again, another guy. They were like, oh yeah, that guy. Okay, he doesn't really do much in this movie, but this is, as you could guess from the title of the movie, it's set in Newark, New Jersey, and that's where the Sopranos TV series is based out of New Jersey. And it just talks about how Dickie Moltisanti's dad comes back from Italy with a beautiful, much younger than him, brunette Italian woman there as his wife, and Dickie Moltisanti's dad is played by none other than Ray Liotta. I mean, Ray Liotta over here. I mean, we're talking about Henry Hill from Goodfellas, like, why'd you do that, Karen? Why'd you do that? We needed that money, Karen. It's, so Ray Liotta adds some credibility to this movie. And so he's in the movie as he's a very brash character. He chews up a lot of scenes in this movie. He's pretty hilarious. But there's some parts in there where he's brutal, and he's a real jerk, but you can see how Dickie Moltisanti got to the mob. His dad was part of the La Cosa Nostra and part of the life. And then in the movie, they throw a little switch at you because something happens in the movie involving something monumental happens in the movie, involving Dickie Moltisanti and his dad. And then later on, Dickie Moltisanti goes to prison to visit a prisoner, and that prisoner is played by Ray Liotta. And if you've seen the trailers and then you go see the movie, once this monumental event happens involving Ray Liotta, you're like, huh? What? And then later on in the movie, it's like it's all cleared up like, oh, okay. That's a twist I didn't see coming. So that's an interesting, part about the movie here. All right, it's Oktoberfest there, folks. Oktoberfest time, I should say. But really, Ray Liotta, he adds some credibility to this movie. And then David Shore, the creator of Sopranos, makes an appearance. But anyway, so I was kind of starting to get into the plot. And so Dickie Moltisanti is kind of like the number 2, it seems like. That's the number 2 in the mob here in Newark, with his dad up at the top. And he's got Dickie Moltisanti has an underling, a black underling in this movie that helps him out. He's kind of his muscle, and there's kind of a falling out with that, and then that leads to some tension between Dickie Moltisanti and this black accomplice here. He's played by Lamar Odom from Hamilton, who Lamar Odom Jr., I should say, is. He's from Hamilton. He's a pretty good singer in real life. He's a fantastic singer. I apologize, I forget his character's name. Harold, that's his name. Harold in this movie. He's a compelling character. He does a pretty good job, and he adds some drama and heft to this movie. But he's kind of a linchpin to the racial part of this movie, because it takes place during, I think it's the 1967 riots in Newark, race riots in Newark. They have a instance where they have a tragedy where a black cab driver gets pulled out of a car by some Newark cops, and I don't know all the details. The movie implies that the black taxi driver was sitting there innocently in a cab, not doing nothing, and some cops just pulled him out, started beating the crap out of him, and killed him. Okay, that's how the movie portrays it. I don't know. I haven't looked into the whole incident. But, of course, as you would expect, it angers the black community, and they start these 1967 riots. And that's the backdrop for a lot of the movie. And in Harold, Lamar Odom Jr.'s character, it just instills a feeling of, I have been shortchanged, I've been taken for granted by Dickie Moltisanti, and I need to do my own thing, and plants a seed in his head, and he gets help, and gets help, later on in the movie by a very famous Harlem mob figure that I will not spoil for you, but when you hear it in the movie, you'll figure it out.
I want to go to college. I can't get caught with like this.
Hey, my friend Hesh says only goys and children pay retail.
This isn't wholesale. It's totally on the arm.
Look, you want to be a civilian, I appreciate that. I'm all for it. But pay attention to me for once, okay? You take the speakers, right? At the same time, you promise yourself these speakers are in. And you say to yourself, this is the last time I'm ever going to steal something. You stick to it. It's that simple.
Hey, I'm back. It's Joe Pesci. How you doing? Hey. Okay. That's my half-assed Joe Pesci impression, or I guess that is Jim Brewer from Saturday Night Live doing Joe Pesci. What, I'm funny to you? I make you laugh? Anyway. So anyway, I think a question that a lot of people will be asking themselves is, do I have to see the Sopranos TV series before I watch this movie? Well, if Tony Soprano's holding a gun to your head and making the answer to that question, and he wants you to say, no, you don't need to see the TV series before you're watching this movie, go ahead and say you don't need to see the TV series before you watch this movie. You don't need to. But I think it would just make it a hell of a lot more compelling if you did. Because some of the characters, like Paulie and Silvio, they're in the movie. They're just kind of hanging out, and you're like, all right, I don't care. These are just a bunch of Mafia lugheads just hanging out. But if you've seen the TV series, then they'll be a little bit more compelling to you, and then especially his mom will be more compelling, and you'll pick up some of the the catchphrases that she uses in this movie that she's famous for in the TV series. Like poor you. Well, that's like whatever famous phrases in the series, and then she lands that one in at one part of this movie. But this movie is a lot like The Sopranos, where it gets into relationships more than other mob movies do between the characters. There's a lot of character building, a lot of exposition, or just a lot. It's very talkative, punctuated by like just sudden scenes of very bloody violence, and in that way, it's not unlike a Quentin Tarantino movie where you just got this lots of dialogue, and you get to a point where like, okay, I need something to happen. Oh my God, somebody's head exploded. Oh, and you're like, oh, okay, wow, okay, I didn't see that coming there, Sopranos. I did not see that. Just takes you by surprise, and it's that kind of movie where it's trying to really be character driven and also remind you that it is a mob movie and people are out for blood and there's vendettas, anger and vindictiveness and egos in play and that kind of thing. And so the you see with these characters, again, just really terrible habits, characteristics. They're just evil people in a way, and very racist. This is taking place in the 60s, and it's the Mafia, so they don't shy away from that. So this movie portrays actually real racism, not the pseudo racism we hear about today. That was real racism back then, and it delves into that. But it's got enough violence and action in it to. I mean, this is not Face Off. This is not Mad Max Fury Road. This is not just wall to wall action and guns and blood and explosions and blowing up the top of the Nakatomi Plaza. It's not that, but it's a dramatic mafia movie, and I think you'll enjoy it. It's not as good as I thought it was going to be. As I was hoping. I think that they should put a little bit more work into it next time and not rely so much on the built-in audience of The Sopranos from to get the audiences in there. This is a movie I'm not going to remember really that much. So I suggest if they're gonna do another Soprano Story movie, kind of like Star Wars, does the Star Wars movies, I think that they would be wise to work on the screenplay a bit more, make the characters more compelling and interesting. Dickie Moltisanti, he was an interesting character, and that's a character that I did walk away remembering for a little bit, but the rest of them were just disposable, like dead bodies that the Mafia are throwing out in the Hudson River. They're just disposable characters. We don't care, So just check out this movie. You could. It's on HBO Max right now, so if you don't want to go out to the theater, you don't have to see it on the big screen. You just watch on HBO Max. I'm sure it'll be out on streaming here before long. Besides HBO Max, But with that, everybody, hey, I appreciate you listening to this review. It doesn't go unappreciated, okay? All right. Hey, come over to my mama. She's going to make you some rigatoni. We got some good parmesan, some, good. Oh, she's got calzones. Oh, all right. All right, thanks a lot, everybody, for listening to this review. Moviesmerica.com. Got the podcast, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. Say hi to me out on social media. All right. Adios.
Hey, guys, don't leave the video quite yet. Okay, I've got a popo. They're coming after me, and I don't have much time to tell you, but you need to like and subscribe this video right here, down below. It's right down there. It's just waiting. It's waiting for you down there, okay? And make sure you watch these videos over here, too. You'll be doing me a big favor. I'm going to be in handcuffs pretty soon. All right. Thanks for watching.